All right, so I got a little bit of an update for you guys here on the 2022 Senate midterms, as Charles Booker has just announced that he is officially running to try to unseat Rand Paul for that Senate seat in Kentucky. So I'm sure most of you guys actually remember Charles Booker. He was the guy who ran in the Democratic primary against Amy McGrath when they were both trying to take on Mitch McConnell, and that was a shit show of a Democratic primary. Amy McGrath was leading in the race early on, and then Charles Booker had this huge, massive surge towards the end. And I'm going to show you some of the favorability polls from back then, which kind of gives a reason why I think he actually may stand a chance to unseat Rand Paul. But that Democratic primary between him and Amy McGrath was an absolute shit show, okay? Amy McGrath was running basically a pro-Trump campaign where she was saying, I'm going to be the one who can more effectively work with Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Charles Booker was running on substantive issues like Medicare for all, and he ended up surging late in the race, but still the Democratic establishment backed Amy McGrath, who, as you're going to see from these favorability polls, was extremely unpopular, even within just the Democratic Party. So she stood no chance. She got absolutely obliterated by Mitch McConnell, and obviously we are where we're at today. So I'm glad that Charles Booker is running again, and hopefully he can actually win this time and not have to face some ridiculous corporate Democrat in the primaries, but I'm sure that he will. So just to show you a little bit of these favorability numbers that I'm talking about last time, because a lot of you guys might be thinking, well, how is a progressive like Charles Booker going to win in a state like Kentucky that's overwhelmingly right-wing typically and conservative? So here are some of the polls that absolutely blew my mind last time around, and really just shows how incompetent and really corrupt the Democratic establishment is, because they looked at polls like this and thought, yeah, we should stick with Amy McGrath and try to push the lever in her favor against Charles Booker. So look at these favorability numbers. So a civics poll showed that less than half of the Democrats surveyed viewed McGrath favorably. Less than half of the members of her own voting bloc, her own party, had a favorable opinion of her. Less than half. That in and of itself should be disqualifying to represent your party in that race, while 27% had an unfavorable opinion of her. Booker, on the other hand, had a favorable rating of 74%. So she had less than half of a favorability rating. He had 74% within the Democratic Party, with only a 4% negative favorability rating. So 27% to 4% within the Democratic Party. So very, very, very decisively, Charles Booker was the more popular candidate in this race. He should have been the nominee, and he would have had a significantly better chance against Mitch McConnell. Would he have won? I don't know that he would have won. Obviously, it's still Kentucky. It would have been a tough race, but I think he at least could have put up a better fight than she did, and she pathetically lost by like over 20 points. So it wasn't even remotely close. So these were the types of polls that really blew my mind, and I was like, okay, well, he's clearly more liked in Kentucky, even though it's a conservative state. It just kind of polls like this blow out of the water the idea that conservative Democrats or corporate Democrats are more appealing, even in a conservative state like Kentucky. They're not. Left-wing populists who appeal to policies like Medicare for all, etc., they are actually more popular even in conservative states. So that's the lesson from polls like that. As far as Rand Paul and his favorability, so of 625 registered voters across Kentucky, 53% said they approved of the junior senator job performance, and 47% said they vote for him to give him another 6 years in a term in Congress if election day happened right now. Comparatively, 41% of the people polled said that they would vote to replace him with a Democrat. So, and 12% said that they would be undecided. So the math works out where, yeah, there's a statistical likelihood, or there is a chance that Charles Booker could cross that threshold and gather some of those 12% that would be undecided and bring him over to their side to successfully unseat Rand Paul. So it is possible. The math lines up, and it's not like it's some crazy stretch that he would have a chance in this election. Now, I also wanted to read from you what these corporate outlets had to say, what some of these analysts had to say about this race, because for the exact reason that this person, Jessica Taylor, says that he doesn't have a good chance of winning in this race, is the exact same reason why I think he actually does have a pretty good chance of winning in this race. So Jessica Taylor, the Senate analyst for the nonpartisan Cook Political Report newsletter, told the Courier-Journal Booker's entry into the race would not affect their outlook in the 2022 race, which they viewed as solid Republican. Though Booker built up his profile in 2020 race, and his campaign will likely be very successful at fundraising, Taylor believes even a large amount of money is futile to a point when you have a state like Kentucky that on a federal level is just incredibly red. Taylor noted that McGrath spent $90 million in her campaign and still lost to McConnell by 20 percentage points, and while Beshear was able to win a statewide race in 2019, federal races in Kentucky are much more difficult to challenge for any Democrat. So they're talking about the federal spending as if that's all that matters, right? As if because this really is how the Democratic establishment views all of these issues. They just think if we just dump a bunch of money into a boring corporate candidate who doesn't represent any of the interests of the average people in that constituency or that voting block, they just think, oh, if we just throw a bunch of money at this, then that's going to magically win the race. No, there are other factors at play here. Just because she spent $90 million, that doesn't necessarily have to be the indicating factor of whether or not she was going to win. The reason why she lost was because people fucking hated her. We just looked at the polls. People didn't like her, okay? It didn't have anything to do with the fact that she spent $90 million or didn't spend. It had more to do with the message that she was putting out there that was incredibly unpopular. That she continues, quote, Booker is even I don't know why she phrased it like that, is even a more progressive to the left candidate than McGrath was, and it's just hard to see how that can be a winning strategy in a state like Kentucky. So again, not really saying anything there, because the policies that Booker is advocating for are more popular than the policies that McGrath was advocating for, even in a state like Kentucky. So it's just a completely hollow analysis here, where again, they're just going with the assumption that corporate right-wing Democrats are by default, by automatic, going to be more popular in states like Kentucky, which again, as we just saw in the polls, is not true. It's not true. Even in conservative states like Kentucky, the left-wing populist candidates are much more popular than corporate Democrats. So this analysis that she's giving is completely void of any of the actual data. And Kyle Kondik, a Senate analyst for the University of Virginia Center for Politics, also said Booker's candidacy would not change the group's designation of the race as being safely Republican. And although Booker believes a more progressive candidate such as himself would have had a better chance than McGrath in 2020, he would have, Kondik countered that Booker, quote, wouldn't have won that race or even come close, considering the partisan trends across the country and within Kentucky. Quote, Booker did have a theory of the election and the electorate that was definitely different than McGrath, so he's going to get a chance to sort of prove that. I think he's a credible candidate who obviously is going to get a lot of national attention, but we still see it as the safe Republican race until we get compelling evidence otherwise. So basically, okay, what they're saying here is they don't think that a progressive candidate, a left-wing candidate, a populist candidate can win in a state like Kentucky just because somebody like Amy McGrath, who was a corporate pro-Trump Republican, can't win in a state like Kentucky. The answer to this is the exact opposite of the way that they are portraying this. Booker has a better chance of winning, not just because of the favorability numbers that I just showed you, but because of the policies that he's running on. Kentucky is an incredibly poor state. They have many, many poor people who could benefit significantly from policies like Medicare for All or free public college or any of these other left-wing policies that he is fighting for, that he is advocating for. So he has a better chance than Amy McGrath did, for sure. I mean, we see it in the numbers here. But will he be able to unseat Rand Paul? I'm not sure. Rand Paul is really one of my least favorite politicians in the country, so I would be absolutely happy to have him be replaced by somebody like Charles Booker, who actually does believe in the policies that I believe in as well. So hopefully he can get this done. Go support his campaign in any way that you want. I'll put his links down in the description box below. But yeah, hopefully Charles Booker can actually put up a good fight here. I think that he can, if he sticks to the policies. If he actually sticks to the policies of his campaign and advocates aggressively for those things, then he can actually stand a chance. Because having all Amy McGrath's candidacy proved is that when you don't run on anything and you just run on, I am going to be the polite version of Mitch McConnell or the slightly left-wing on social issues version of Mitch McConnell, then you're not going to get anywhere. Okay, you're just not. So good luck to Charles Booker. Hope he wins this, and yeah, we'll have to see how it goes.